Hey everyone, let's go over the daily maintenance for the LK150. After using the LK150, you want to maintain the needles, TNT and the carriage. You can use a small cleaning brush like this. It's a computer cleaning brush you can find online. You can find it on the online marketplaces or in some boutiques or the gift shops. So grab one of these brushes after you're done knitting. You've taken the fabric off. Get a small brush like this ready. We'll use it for the lint in the grooves of the machine bed. Just give it a brush. Clean out all the leftover lint and yarn fibers. After cleaning the entire machine bed, you can push out the knitting needles. Because you'll often find lint inside the needles. Because our yarn has a lot of lint on it. So try to clean this out after each project. After we pull out the knitting needles, you'll notice this part, near the edge of the needles in the A position, gets really dusty and dirty. We'll use this brush to clean it all up. See that? See all this build up here? We'll clean it all out. Clean the entire machine bed this way. Then hold the brush vertically to sweep out the lint inside. People in the group often ask how to oil the LK150. As you all know, our knitting machine comes with an oil bottle. I've poured it into this spray bottle. You don't have to. You can use the oil directly. Once you have the oil, never spray the oil directly onto the machine. More lint will stick to the machine bed or the grooves, and it will be more difficult to clean. Use any old cotton cloths you have at home. Dip a little oil onto the cloth until it's saturated, then wipe. Wipe the machine bed. Because our LK150, the machine bed is made of plastic, not iron, so it's quite easy to clean. After cleaning up all this dirt, you see, we'll wipe off a lot of dirt. And on the knitting needles, you can also apply a little oil. Then use a clean side and soak the cotton cloth again. Apply it to the knitting needles. When applying, close the needle latches. Close it, because scraping with the needle latch open can easily damage it. You don't need to oil it frequently. If you find it difficult or laborious to push, first clean the machine bed. Remove all the dirt from the entire machine bed. Brush it all out with a small brush. Then wipe the machine bed clean. After wiping everything down, lightly spray a little oil on the knitting needles. This is how we maintain the machine bed. Now you might ask, how do we maintain the carriage? The carriage is the same. Let's remove the carriage and take a look. You'll see the LK150's carriage has a simple design. During knitting, this part engages with the machine bed's rails. The knitting needles are normally here. We'll see a lot of debris inside. and in these areas. When cleaning, don't point the brush towards the knitting machine, or we'll brush all the lint into the slots. Then we'll brush this dirt off other parts. I'm doing this so you can see clearly. I'll show you how, but normally, we'll move away from the machine to brush. You'll find a lot of lint and dirt inside. If there are places the brush can't reach, we'll also need to use a cotton cloth. Inside the slots, you'll see, it's hard to reach with our hands. We can use a cotton cloth with a bit of machine oil. With the machine's repair tool, to clean the dirt from the slots. Lots of dirt comes out. We'll clean all the slots like this. You might be wondering, how often should you clean it? During knitting, the carriage is easy to remove. You can check it yourself. If it's too dirty, or there's too much buildup inside, then we need to clean it. Let's take a look. We've cleaned out a lot of leftover yarn and the other debris from knitting. Also, let's take a look at these two brushes. Make sure no yarn is wrapped around the brushes. Or these two smaller brushes, yarns like mohair, tend to get tangled on these. You can clean them by hand. Make sure these brushes only have their own bristles. Next, we'll oil the machine. When oiling the carriage and the machine bed, don't use too much oil, and don't spray it directly on the machine. Spray a little oil on the cloth until it's saturated. Then we can apply the oil here. Look at these areas where the knitting needles pass through. If you can't get the cloth in with your fingers, you can use the repair needle to oil these areas. Let's take a look. If you regularly clean the exterior of the LK150 like this, and oil it, knitting will be much smoother. So, after we've oiled it like this, and if there's any dirt here, you can wipe it all clean. And any excess oil, we can wipe on these areas, because the LK150 knitting machine has a relatively simple structure, so the maintenance is also relatively simple. Just keep the machine bed and carriage clean. You don't need to oil it frequently. If knitting becomes difficult, or it's hard to move the carriage, we can apply a little oil to it. Use this cotton cloth for oiling. Just wipe it. That completes our basic maintenance. Let's push out the needles and try it. This makes moving the carriage much easier. It won't be tight or difficult to move. Now let's look at the grooves. The LK150 has a slot between each needle. If it's used for a long time, these grooves get very dark. This is from the knitting needles rubbing in this spot. You'll see dark residue. If you have time, clean each groove the same way. Each of the 150 needle grooves, apply a little oil like this, then clean them one by one. That completes the basic machine maintenance. You'll wipe away a lot of dirt. Once we clean this out, that makes our knitting much easier. So remember to maintain and care for your machine. After you finish knitting one or more projects, always give the machine a thorough cleaning. Try to avoid using very thick or specialty yarns. For example, you often ask about fluffy yarn, which is a yarn for knitting. When we're knitting with knotted yarn, if you really want to knit with it, we have a way to do it. You often ask about the gauge tension. What needles do we use for thick yarn? We can use the every other needle method. We have some of this thick yarn here as an example. As you know, we cast on using the every other needle method. After casting on, we move the needles from A position to B position. For a full needle rip, that means every needle is used. If we're using fluffy yarn or particularly thick yarn, we can use the every other needle method directly. So, after casting on, we just keep knitting that way, without pushing down the needles in the A position. When knitting with very thick fluffy yarn, this method is used. So that's all for the basic maintenance of the LK150. Please take good care of your knitting machine. For daily cleaning, check the carriage. To see if there's a heavy buildup of lint inside. Also check if the machine bed and needles are dirty, or if there's a lot of dirt or lint buildup. By doing this, you're less likely to have problems while knitting. It's also part of our machine's routine maintenance. Okay, that's it for today's LK150 routine maintenance. That's all for now.